May I please have your full and undivided attention? It is time for the Paranormal Rundown. Hello, this is Cedric Dankworth-Smythe. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome all fans of the paranormal, the supernatural, the unusual, the entertaining, the terrifying, the horrifying, and those things that go bump in the night and in the daytime too. This is the one and only Paranormal Rundown, where the lads, the gang of nerds, choose from over 2,700 carefully curated paranormal topics. Tonight, Dave, Randy, and Vic discuss alcohol and drugs and how they increase demonic vulnerability, near-death experiences, both beatific and hellish, the Veil of Forgetfulness. Plus, you'll get to hear about the voices that Vic hears in his head. I know you were concerned about that. It'll be a rousing time. So join me, and let's go enjoy the Paranormal Rundown.
Hello, everybody. This is Vic Hermanson. Welcome to episode 54 of the Paranormal Rundown. The Paranormal Rundown list is now at, what did I say, Dave?
2,808.
No, we just added one, 2,809. So, as you know, or you may not know, the Paranormal Rundown is where we randomly choose 6 topics from our massive list of 2,809, which is always growing, and then we decide which one of those we want to talk about. If we have a guest, the guest has priority in choosing, but we don't have a guest tonight. So it's myself, Vic Hermanson, from Parts Unknown, Randy Cantrell, and from Florida, Dave Griffith. So what do you guys have to say?
Well, it's not snowing down here.
Yeah, it's getting ready to snow here, and where Randy Cantrell is.
It's on the verge. It's on the verge.
All right. I actually have
Ed, here's something for our listeners. You know, I've been doing polls in our Spotify releases. So if you listen on Spotify, you see the poll that I put out there. I think this week, just to, press some buttons, I'm going to put a poll out there to ask if the rundown list pool should indeed be 6 topics to choose from, or if it should be less, like maybe 4 topics.
I think I like the variety of 6.
All I'm saying is, by the time we get through 6, I've forgotten the first 2.
That is true. That does happen.
Well,
so if you want to give feedback, the poll will be out there. And if you don't listen on Spotify, just email us, feedback@paranormalrundown.com.
Right. This has been a continuing source of controversy because, I believe a good range of topics is a good idea. Dave wants a more focused range, but we will let the listeners decide. Why don't, send us information or send us your thoughts at feedback@paranormalrundown.com. Okay, why don't we try this particular list right here, which is the one that is up right now. So topic 1 is unusual religions, and this one is the Raelians. Did they clone humans? Topic 2 is Macbeth, supernatural elements. Topic 3 is the Amber Room and other lost treasures. Topic 4 is what evidence do we have of an afterlife? Topic 5 is the J.W. Dunn theory. Within each human being, there is an infinite series of different selves, each experiencing time in a different way. So that is one explanation for prevision, dreaming about the future, predicting the future.
Okay.
And topic 6 is alcohol, drugs, and demonic vulnerability. I spent a number of years working in inner city EDs, and man, I got to tell you, anything horrible that can happen to a human is greatly enhanced with alcohol and drugs.
Well, lots of things are greatly enhanced with alcohol and drugs. Sometimes in a bad way.
Generally, yeah, in a bad way.
Generally.
So, anybody got any particular favorites there?
I mean, I would lean towards either evidence of an afterlife or the alcohol and drugs topic.
Well, we could do both. We could do both because I like.
Okay.
All right, let's start with the alcohol and drugs, and I'll start. I mean, one of the things that I tell people from working in the ED and watching human behavior was that addiction, drug addiction, extreme alcohol addiction, over time makes a human being something other than human. People get to the point where they have no love, care, concern, esteem for anyone else other than, can that person help me get some drugs? That's all that matters to them. And once I have seen somebody get to that point, I can only think of 2 people that I ever saw come back from it. Now, the ED is a place where you'll run into all kinds of spooky stuff. I'm not sure I ever saw anything that seemed particularly demonic with drugs, except for the fact that people lost their humanity. So I don't have any juicy stories.
No juicy stories, huh?
No juicy stories. At least not that have to do with alcohol and drugs, other than that loss of humanity.
I think it certainly opens a door,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whenever you're dealing with addiction, it is I guess it's probably, from a biblical standpoint, you're certainly falling into essentially gluttony, right? At a certain point, too much of something.
That's as good an explanation as any, yeah.
And whether it be, a high or just a, buzz from alcohol, whatever. But it also, it weakens you mentally. And as someone who drank a fair amount when they were younger, I know it breaks you down in a lot of ways. And I've known alcoholics that, had lifelong problems, and it's the same thing, right? I mean, there's a lack of control that you have in your life that I think opens you up for definitely demonic influence. And when we would do investigations, we also didn't want people, because we used to do public ones. Didn't want people drinking.
What exactly does a public investigation mean?
Well, you pay. So we were part of a group that was managing investigations of these historical sites, plantations, old theaters, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And you would, you'd advertise it. People would pay $40, $50, show up, and get to spend 4 hours or so investigating. And, you break into groups, and then we would lead one of the groups, my wife and I. And so that's a public, right? It's not something that it was just us. It was a public, there's lots of people from different backgrounds, people you don't know that are going to be there. Mm-hmm. And we wouldn't allow alcohol on that. And we strongly recommend against any drinking prior to getting there, because there is a casualness which you treat things once you've had a few drinks in you. and you're having fun and you're more relaxed, which you're also not as aware of things you say or how risky things can get. So you don't, you know, you might start provoking something, or something may be paying especially, close attention to you, and you're just not aware of it. So,
And there are
in
also
general,
plenty of stories of people supposedly interacting with spirits of the addiction that they have. I've heard different podcast episodes, different things where people were talking about different addictions and things that happen around them. And even in particular, some Native American beliefs, when they say a spirit of alcohol, they are talking about a literal spirit. Some of them, depending on the culture, there's lots of them, obviously. But I've heard stories from there's a podcast I enjoy, with, I believe it's some of the Blackfeet tribe, but where they will tell stories about people who have an alcohol spirit. And one of the stories is someone will go through and empty all of the alcohol out of someone's house because they're like, they want to clean this person up, and they're trying to drag them out of there to take them to a hospital. And they're like, no, wait. The man always brings, just go in there and get me my whiskey. The man brings it to me every day. And he's like, no, I've emptied everything. I cleared out your house. There's nothing left. And the guy fights him like, no, just go in there. I promise it will be on the counter. It will be right there. He brings it to me every day. And so his friend goes in there, and sure enough, there's a brand new bottle of whiskey sitting in a flask, just sitting right there on the counter in plain view where he just cleared everything out. There's supposedly like gas station security cam footage of weird things happening where someone gets in a car with someone who's drinking, there's an accident, and then when they get there, that extra person who got in the car is not there. There's lots of stories of extra things. And
so we're talking supernatural acquisition of alcohol.
With that particular story, that came from, I believe it's Lodge Tales is the name of that podcast, just to give credit where it's due.
Wow.
But that's one of the stories that they've told there. But there's there's other stories I've heard outside of like the Native American community where people have talked about confronting things that seem to be spirits or entities representing facets of their addiction. And you could argue that some of that is hallucinations, depending on what the drug is, things like that, maybe a little bit of psychosis. But there are definitely stories where there are other people who are not in the midst of the addiction who see things, hear things, experience things around people who are going through those struggles.
Did this particular person describe the man any more so than that?
Not in the audio that I heard. No.
Okay.
No.
yeah, I don't necessarily chalk that up to hallucinations or anything like that. I think that's actually reasonable. I mean, from my experience and others we've had on here, the demonic is definitely real. It is something that is tangible beyond just a mental process, and having that associated with something that causes an addiction makes perfect sense. It seems now whether they are the specific demon of alcohol or just a demon that likes to use alcohol as a method to oppress or eventually possess a person. I'm not saying it's like, well, this is the demon of tequila, and over here you have the demon of white rum.
They're called spirits for a reason.
That's true.
Exactly. That's
exactly.
Right.
Yes.
But that they would use that and be associated with it makes perfect sense to me.
Well, I got to spend about 6 weeks with some of the Aboriginal people in Australia when I was working down there. And this is simply the law of the land. That's all I'm talking about. But your Australian driver's license or ID card, if you don't have a driver's license, one of the sections of the card says whether or not you are legally allowed to buy alcohol.
Right.
And a fair number of the Aboriginal people are not allowed to buy alcohol. I'm assuming because of past alcoholic events, because of, behavioral issues or whatever. But so when you are an outsider, someone, that doesn't have that limitation, you will have lots and lots of people come up to you and say, hey, can you buy me some grog? Will you please buy me some grog? And they'll say things like, it's $10. Here's $20. You can keep the change. So they're desperate for that grog. And I've seen people go through DTs in the ER. DTs can kill you. DTs, delirium tremens. That's the process of withdrawing from alcohol. And man, it is a painful thing to watch.
It's also the name of a very famous ale, delirium tremens. Yeah, it's a Belgian ale with pink.
Are you kidding me? They've actually got an ale, an alcoholic beverage called DT.
No, it's the full name, delirium
tremens. Yeah. Something kind of cruel and perverse about that, I would say.
It's a little sense of humor. I kind of appreciate it.
Some gallows humor. Yeah. You could even tie let's say you want to associate some actual spiritual entities with addiction. And whether or not you want to say that it's more of just a opportunity that presents itself, something nasty is walking by, sees someone who has an issue, is just developing an issue, and says, you know what, they're a good person to feed off of. It could be something like that. But there's also all these stories associated with plant medicines, like certain plant medicines where people will take these and there will be a certain entity or spirit or being that they will commune with when they were on these
we're talking
effectively holy mutagens or whatever.
Right, we're talking ayahuasca, that kind of.
Yeah, ayahuasca is one. What's the name of the plant in the Southwest that the
mescaline?
Native American Church? Yeah, mescaline. There's all sorts of stuff that. Right,
people are on
claim
these,
they're actually seeing these things.
Right, we're on these plant-based trips.
Yes.
They talk about seeing a consistent type of entity.
Well, I know it's consistent with DMT, and that's the ayahuasca and other forms. We talked about this a little bit a while back. But I don't think it's the same thing associated with mescaline. So I think it's a different thing, but the ayahuasca thing is very consistent, and they all consider them to be like aliens.
They use the term machine elves.
Mm-hmm. Machine elves.
Yep.
And I'm sure that's just the Americanized Western interpretation of that. I'm sure there's some other interpretation for the native peoples who grew up, who's culturally are part of that.
I can see that as a method of entry. If you are talking to other people who have taken these trips, and they describe these machine elves, then when you experience them through your own trip, your own experience, they are not going to seem as frightening to you. If I were a demon, I think it'd be a very good idea to be able to approach my future victim without them being suspicious. So if in this
the other one I was thinking of was peyote. I believe that there are things people say that they see when they're on peyote, a specific spirit of peyote, a spirit of the medicine.
So that's the
medicine. And I am not implying that whatever people are seeing is necessarily has to be the darker stuff with people with very bad addictions are dealing with heroin addicts. I'm not comparing heroin addicts to someone who's taking peyote in a religious setting, but I'm just saying if you believe what people are saying, see these entities or experience things while you're on something like a quote unquote holy plant medicine, then why can't there be something associated with the darker stuff?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Mescaline is what's in peyote, like DMT is what's in the ayahuasca.
Yeah.
Well, and some other stuff that's mixed in with it. I think the interesting thing about that though is, and I don't know about the peyote and the mescaline trips. I don't know about well, I don't know personally about any of it. I don't do hallucinogens. The strongest drug I do now, is like coffee, or tea. Because I always have my tea going. But the thing about these experiences on ayahuasca that I hear over and over again, it is during the trip. But there's that's not something like, people don't go do ayahuasca, as a, Friday night thing, or, twice a month or whatever. It is it's a journey to get to it. It's something that is done as an experience. Now, some people do go have repeat experiences, but most don't. They have an experience, it changes their life. They experience these machine elves or whatever entities in it, and then they're done with it. And it's not like those things keep popping back up in their life.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that would be, there may be a spirit associated with it, maybe, but I don't know. It seems like something different than like your typical demonic.
Oh, I would absolutely think it's something different.
Yeah.
I'm just comparing. If you can have something for one, then you can probably have something for the other.
Mm-hmm.
I do not believe they would be in the same category at all.
But you definitely have demons that have a focus. You look at, I know I've talked about it a couple times with the story of Tobit in in the, man, I'm going to get it wrong.
The Catholic Bible?
Is it the pseudepigrapha?
Yeah.
Apocrypha, which it's the pseudepigrapha.
It's
right?
the pseudepigrapha. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So not in a Protestant, your typical Protestant Bible, but
Right. Just for people who don't know, the Catholic Bible has 73 books, 73, 74. The Protestant Bible has 67 books, I believe.
yeah, it's like 14 or something books different. But no, the Catholics didn't add it.
No, that's correct. The
That is the
Protestants removed
Protestant
it.
view. Is like they added a whole bunch of books to the Bible. It's kind of funny.
Mhm.
But no, the Protestants removed it. But in that you have this demon who is it's Asmodeus, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And his purpose is to prevent marriage. It's to affect relationships between husband and wife, or prevent those relationships. And which is why he's, oppressing this woman, or I don't know, I wouldn't say it's like a possession. He's keeping her from being married. And so you look at spirits that have or demons that have a specific focus or specific tools that they use. So you could see drugs, or you hear this with exorcists on podcasts that have demons that have repeatedly use porn, right? Or sex work, or sexual effects on the person they're possessing or obsessing. So why not alcohol or heroin, or the spirit of NyQuil. I don't know.
I heard a podcast today. It was actually an old Art Bell podcast where he was talking to a brother. I don't remember which order, but he was one of these guys saying that, look, the church is being destroyed by Vatican II. But he started talking about Pope John Paul II being deeply infested by a number of demons, to where he had to undergo exorcism a number of times. I know that's not the topic here, but have either of you heard any of these allegations?
I have not, and that's interesting because everybody thinks so highly of him. And I think he had his demons, but not like, I've never heard of him being possessed.
Yeah, I know nothing about this, but I'm also not very deeply entrenched in the Catholic version of things.
Okay. shall we move on?
Yeah. Let's do something else.
What do you want to talk about afterlife?
Oh, that was just the evidence of an afterlife.
The evidence of an afterlife.
Is that what it was, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, topic number 2683.
I figure the easiest way to go into that is to look at the near-death experiences. Like
Most definitely.
Yeah, there's plenty of things with near-death experiences where it sure as heck seems like there's evidence there, whether it's people being able to recall full conversations while they're clinically dead, or in the more extreme cases, people being able to say, but there's a pen on top of that cupboard over there that you could never see on top of from where you're laying. And sure enough, there's a pen over there. So there's definitely seems to be something going on there outside the body.
Well, I've go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I've talked to quite a few people who've had near-death experiences. I'm going to say maybe 16, 18, something along those lines. And talking to them after surgery, after they had coded in ICU, after they had coded in the ER. And I never started these conversations. I never, ever asked somebody, hey, did you experience anything while you were going through that code or anything? But there were always people who said, hey, can I talk to you about something? I said, yeah, sure. What do you want to talk about? And they would tell me about these experiences they had. Some of them were pretty much the traditional, feeling of incredible acceptance and love and the light at the end of the tunnel and this understanding that there's a certain place I can go, and if I go past that point, I can't come back. And sometimes being told by people there or by what they perceive to be as a deity that, listen, it's not your time, you have to go back. And those were, positive, uplifting events. But about half of the people I talked to were talking about hellish events. I mean, it was a much higher percentage of people than you read about in the general literature.
That's interesting. I wonder why it's so high versus the literature.
Yeah, I don't know if I was talking to a particularly cursed group of people or what, but there were just about as many negative experiences as there were positive experiences.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. So my mom's really into near-death experiences.
Mm-hmm.
She sends me videos of more interesting ones that she runs across, and she's talked about how there are some experiences that are really, really negative, but the vast majority she runs across are positive. So that's an interesting.
I mean, there are websites, databases of people like reporting these things, and at least in the databases, most of it's positive. And maybe it's a thing where it could be just a reporting bias where if someone had a really bad experience, they don't want to talk about it because what does that say about them that they had this hellish experience?
Oh, okay.
So there could be some bias like that.
That's an excellent point. I hadn't thought about that.
But still, I mean, half seems high to me. I mean,
I think that
I am definitely
negative
a magnet
experiences were just drawn to you at that hospital or those hospitals.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it's not like there's any shortage of them. I mean, any ED is a place of daily, well, not any ED, but any big city ED is a place of daily horror and tragedy.
Yeah.
What were the negative experiences like? Is there sort of a pattern to them? Or?
Well, there was a pattern. And one of the things they talked about was that, I mean, it's very, very Southern Baptist traditional, I felt like I was burning. I felt like my body was on fire. I felt like my legs, my feet, my hands were on fire. I felt like there would never be anything loving or positive in my life again. Despair. Despair is a very common thing in the paranormal experiences that I've been a part of, human despair is it seems to me to be a very powerful weapon against individuals.
Most definitely.
But they were talking about this horrible, first off, the horrible pain, the incredible degree of despair, the incredible degree of remorse, because they realized the things they had done. And most of them had a kind of an epiphany of, and a belief that they were given a chance to change their lives. At least two said, well, I've seen where I'm going. There's not a damn thing I can do about it.
Oh, no kidding.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I wonder how much of that is just a person's own spiritual context. Because if you're in if you're in an area where majority of people have the Christian framework,
mm-hmm.
then it makes sense the ones who go through bad experiences are going to have some sort of like hellish experience. But I've heard stories from people who aren't necessarily spiritual or don't necessarily subscribe to Christianity. And I've heard other stories when it's a bad thing. Like one particular story, I don't remember all the details, but it always stands out to me where this person, when they basically went beyond the veil.
Hello. This is Avalon Leanne Dankworth Smythe. I've always been fascinated by the way most humans use the term, beyond the veil. So, as Randy has so expertly brought up the topic, I thought I would take this chance to clarify a few things that a number of Paranormal Rundown fans have been wanting to know. I'm quite charitable like that. Recently, I received a fan letter from Paranormal Pauline in Pittsburgh, PA. Dear Avalon, this is Paranormal Pauline in Pittsburgh, PA. But you can just call me Pauline. My friends and I listen to every Paranormal Rundown episode just to hear the things you have to say. We love your voice, and we love the way you keep the gang of nerds in check. You are the greatest girl boss of all time. But we wonder exactly what you and your father are. Are you human just like the rest of us? Are you disembodied and floating somewhere in the ether? Are you on the other side of the veil, only visiting us from time to spread your wisdom and knowledge? Inquiring minds want to know. Sincerely, Paranormal Pauline in Pittsburgh, PA. Here is my answer. Dear Paranormal Pauline, thanks for recognizing how astounding I, and my father, Cedric Dankworth Smythe, actually are. The answer to your question is rather complicated. You see, we are human, or, at least mostly so. While you, Vic Hermanson, and the other nerds, are strictly Homo sapiens sapiens, my father and I and about 0.02% of the world's population are of a species we have labeled Homo sapiens sapiens noeticos temporalis. Wow, that's a big scary series of words. We are all born into the normal, temporally, predictable world, but just before our fragile human bodies die, or are destroyed, we involuntarily make a temporal shift, about 52 immutable Planck time units into the future. We are therefore immune from all human illnesses and injury. We are probably not immortal, but we persist for a very long time indeed. Plus, we are able to pass into, and through the veil, as you call it, though we greatly prefer to stay in the world of the still living. You see, those on the other side of the veil are quite busy with their own existence and their own concerns. We don't like to intrude. But temporal humans, on the other hand, are an endless source of amusement. Stay tuned, Paranormal Pauline from PA, and you will hear many more wondrous things from my father and myself. Unfortunately, you'll have to tolerate the gang of nerds also.
They were in just, you could call it the nothing, like a black space, nothing there, nothing but them. But initially there was another being there, some being that told them, I don't remember the being said that like this is because of what you did, or this is a test, or what there was some sort of communication first. And then that being left them there, and they left them in this total darkness where this person's just like floating in the emptiness of space. And it felt like eternity. They were just there alone and isolated and in their own despair with nothing around them. There was no hellfire brimstone, but it was just a very different kind of hell that still feels like a hell.
Total absence of any other contact with any other being.
And then eventually that person came back. But I mean, I know someone who's had a good experience. I have a family member who had a near-death experience as a child, and she describes it as whatever the space she was in, full of all this light. And she had some of the kind of like, I don't believe she said she saw any beings or spiritual entities or anything, but she had that overwhelming love, that caring, that peace. And then she always describes it was like golden sparkles of light just floating through the air all around her, just all these golden floaters, but like there's something significant about it.
What did she believe those golden floaters were?
She's not sure. But she told me just recently in the last year that she was at a work party, and she somehow ended up sitting next to like the boss's wife or mother, boss's wife, but it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
But she was bored because she's not really into the work party thing. And so she looks over to the other woman and says, "Tell me, what's the weirdest thing that's ever happened to you?" And the woman described the exact same type of near-death experience with the golden light, golden sparkles, whatever, floating through the air. And so this family member came back and told me that, because you know I'm the family weirdo who's into all this stuff. So they told me about it. But it was really cool. But I've also heard stories, and this one's a little bit sad just because it's a family member. Okay. Where there is a family member of mine who passed away a few years back. And this other family member, the same one who had the near-death experience, like she's someone who's sensitive to things, picks up on things, has different experiences. And she was there when this person passed away, and the whole time that the death was drawing near, like she started hearing what sounded like whispering and different people talking in the room around her that she couldn't see. And the person who was passing away was experiencing that, as you hear in the stories of like deathbed things where they start talking to people who aren't there. Mm-hmm. So this person passes away, and this person who passes away, I loved her. She always treated me wonderful, but there is parts of her that weren't always the nicest, and that's not a side of her I ever experienced, but those parts existed. And so this family member who's still alive now, who experiences these things, she had a dream about her. Again, I think this was sometime in the last year, where she first she goes in the dream and her sister is there, because her sister had passed away years earlier from cancer, and her sister is there, and her sister's just all happy and content and all this stuff. And so she asks her sister, like, what are you doing here? What's going on? She's like, "Oh, I'm just going over my life review. I'm just going over everything that's happened to me, like consolidating everything and putting all my affairs in order." And she's like, "How are you doing?" Like, "Oh, it's wonderful. I'm doing wonderful. I'm doing the best I've ever done." And it was just like a very nice, loving thing. But then the sister fades away, and the family member who passed away more recently comes into the picture, and she is like scared, frightened, saying, "I don't know what's going on. I don't understand. I feel lost. I'm stuck in between. I feel stuck in between." And the way that this was described to me sounds very much how I would imagine like Catholic purgatory. And so I've heard all sorts, like, and this is a person who's passed away, but the dreams that my family member had, she was talking to this person who passed away, and she was feeling lost and upset and alone. And then as my family member woke up, she could still hear the person who passed away saying, "Where are you going? Where are you going?" As she's sitting up in bed, waking up, and hears her for a few more seconds. And since there's a few weird things that happened in the family between then and more recently, but more recently, like, things seem to be more peaceful. Like, we think that wherever she was, she's probably finally found her peace and finally moved on to the rest, whatever other part of the afterlife you want to call it, whether you want to call it heaven or something else. But there was a period there where it seemed like she was going through some things.
Did that seem like more than a dream to her?
Absolutely.
So it had that
it
sort
definitely
of
seemed
real
like,
life feel to it.
And this is a person who has experience with both more real life feel things and things that are more mundane. Mm-hmm. This person's very experienced with things like that.
I would not have associated that necessarily with the Catholic view of purgatory. And I'd be curious, Vic, with your take on that, because when I think of purgatory in the way it's described as to what it is and what its purpose is, I don't think of it as a just limbo of uncertainty.
No.
Where you're just, it seemed like it would be almost a guided thing where you have to work through things but you also, it would seem like you're working through them.
Of course, the theology mostly of purgatory, at least as far as I know, and that's why we need Father Mike and George and people like that around, because they know this a lot better than I do, is that nothing impure or unholy can enter heaven. Therefore, the purpose of purgatory is to allow that soul to rid itself of impureness, of unholiness. And how that is accomplished, I can't tell you. I don't know. But, I mean, it's accomplished through the efforts of the person in purgatory and through the help of those in purgatory. One would assume there would be overseers, not a very good word, but more advanced beings that were able to help you get through this, and the prayers of people still on earth.
Well, I would, if you take into account the full Catholic breadth of theology, I would assume it also that overseer or guide would probably be your guardian angel.
Guardian angel
would be involved in that too, and that would be you would think that would be an area where they could have more direct involvement with you than while you're here.
While you're here on earth.
But I don't know. Uncertainty, I guess in the end, what I'm saying, Randy, is I had not placed uncertainty with purgatory.
Well, to be fair, this is just me saying that's the closest thing I can associate it with, because I don't necessarily have, well, I certainly have very strong spiritual beliefs. I don't necessarily have the same certainty that you guys have that, say, the Catholic version is the correct way. And so for
certainty.
me,
it's not certainty, believe me.
Yeah. I don't have the same convictions exactly. But so for me, this is just like, say a place like this exists where there's like maybe an in-between where you have to figure your stuff out before you can be at peace. Then different cultures might frame that different ways, and I could see the Catholic version of that being something that turns into purgatory. So that's why I framed it that way, just as a reference for you guys. But
I want to go
this
down
is a question that would be good for like Father Mike if he knows this, because
yeah.
I heard that, I feel like I've heard somewhere that the early Judaic viewpoint of the afterlife was there was some kind of limbo while you waited to go to heaven or go with the Creator. That there was
limbo
at some point in past.
Yeah,
Again, I know limbo is a specific term. I don't mean it in the specific historical sense of it, but I mean something like that, something akin to that.
Well, the Catholic Church has abandoned the idea of limbo. Limbo was a concept of if a non-baptized infant dies, that they, of course, aren't deserving of any punishment. However, they don't meet the criteria for entering into heaven. I'm perfectly fine with the Catholic Church abandoning that particular view of things. Yeah. I want to go down a rabbit hole, if you guys don't mind. We haven't done a rabbit hole here tonight. We've been pretty linear. But
go for it.
Am I the only person, and of course I'm not, who finds the whole idea of a heaven as a final destination to be very problematic. Not in that, I'm hoping I go someplace else. It's just that I know my particular personality is not one of doing nothing. My particular personality is one of, man, I'm driven to do stuff all the time. Work to me is a holy thing, something I want to do. I can't imagine that changing if my personality survives the death of my body. So this idea of perpetual rest, this kind of thing, doesn't appeal to me at all.
Well,
I've always seen it as like an ecstatic, I've always seen the Christian viewpoint as this, and this is part of the reasons why I'm not necessarily fully on board with the Christian viewpoint of either heaven or hell. But I've always seen like the idea of heaven is the only way that would work is if you're in this like rapturous, ecstatic state of just pure worship, pure everything, where it's just like you're so enraptured. It's like almost like you'd lost your mind. Like you're just like locked in this just like rapturous, worshipful, ecstatic, the Holy of Holies type deal.
and I don't think that's what heaven is at all. I think we get the problem with heaven or hell is that we get little blurbs about it throughout Scripture, but no, like, hey, here's the full picture. And we look at those blurbs and put them together and go, wow, heaven is going to be really boring. Right? I mean, that's the way I see it, right? I mean, okay,
right.
sure, everything's shiny, gold streets with all these gems and, the light of God all the time and worship all the time. And, okay, what else? What are we going to do when we get bored, right? I think that's just, like much of Scripture, it's representative of the ideas that we're able to ingest and absorb, but it is a fraction of the reality. Just like, we've talked about the idea of there's nothing in the Bible that says aliens don't exist. It's just the Bible has what God said about essentially what is needed for salvation. Everything else, it's not like that's, as we say, it's not like he quit creating after the seventh day. There's the opportunity for plenty more out there. I think heaven's the same way. I think that there are, hey, look, it's going to be great. Okay. But I cannot imagine a state like you're saying, Randy, where you're in rapture all the time and that's it. Right? Not if we, and you made a really good point, Vic, whether you realize it or not, which is maintaining your personality beyond this life.
Correct.
What is our, when we move on, are we more than we are here?
I certainly hope so.
Right.
And I've thought about that a lot. I mean, I'm talking many hundreds of hours of thinking about this.
Yes.
And to me, it's also kind of one of the explanations for theodicy.
Mm-hmm.
In that, hey, listen, look, yes, this seems entirely evil. This seems entirely purposeless. It seems cruel. But you're not seeing the whole picture.
Right.
There's a lot more here that God has in place that you simply can't perceive. And as you pass on, as you go into a different, more expanded reality, there's a lot that you will know. There's more to you than you are aware of right now. And there's more to Dave, and there's more to Randy, and there's more to everybody than you are aware of right now. And of course, look, this is just speculation on my part, but it seems to me that that's almost a necessity, in that there are so many things that we are left completely clueless about that we really do want to know. that we really do need some information about. But we're not ever going to get that information here.
Well, think about the idea that, think of how much we learn and experience in somewhere between 70 and 100 years of our life here.
Mm-hmm.
All the people we meet, all the experiences we have, all the things we learn, all the ideas we generate, the changes in our personal selves are drastic over the decades. Now apply that to eternity. Right? I mean, if you buy the standard Christian line, you're going to be in heaven forever. Right?
Boy,
There's
it's so
going
hard
to be, now we know that there's, according to Revelation, there's going to be a new earth created, the old one's destroyed. There's going to be thousands of years of a kingdom and all this stuff. But eternity is more than a couple thousand years.
Right.
And so how does a person change over that time? This is why I really found the concept of the Tayuba prophecy so interesting. This framework that Samuel described. And if y'all haven't heard that, our last episode was Samuel Chong. But the idea of you go through these lives and you have these experiences until your soul evolves. Now, it was even more complicated than that because the soul was really spread across like 8 people at our level, which is,
9.
Again, this idea that you are more than what you are here in this life. Maybe you and 7 of your best friends are the same person, the same soul. I thought that was an interesting concept, but this advancement of a soul through levels over time, that's when I was back into the New Age stuff and when I was younger, that is much how I viewed life is, you have this soul that's never ending, but it goes through experiences. You go through lifetimes to learn and grow. And you take those learnings back to your soul beyond, and then you have something else you learn and grow with.
Well, what I know about myself is that as I am, with my current capabilities and knowledge and emotional makeup, if I had to experience eternity, I don't think I would survive. I don't think my mind could survive. I don't think my psyche could. Look, I'm barely a next Thursday kind of guy.
We're going to need some holy Ritalin.
I mean, and I say that as a joke, that I'm barely a next Thursday kind of, but it's really sort of true. I'm doing well if I have my life planned out till next Thursday. I have no idea how to plan for eternity.
I mean, that's a lot of the appeal of reincarnation. So the ideas of reincarnation, you gotta try different things and experience new things, experience new lives, and then go back and stitch it all together and become a new person.
It's this not remembering the old stuff that I have an issue
Not
with.
remembering the old stuff, right?
That's what I'm not a fan of.
What do they call it? The Veil of Forgetfulness or something like that? So...
Yeah. There is a story I heard once, and I do not remember where I heard this. I've listened to way too many podcasts. I'm sorry. But,
You would be both.
Oh, that's one of the reasons
but
you're
here. It was a reincarnation type story where there was a woman and she has a small child, and I do not remember. I don't think the child was stillborn. I think that the child was actually born, and that there was maybe some sort of SIDS, or as just a very young child, the kid passed away.
Right.
This woman is obviously devastated.
Obviously.
But she moves on with her life, and at some point she has another kid. And she has this kid starts growing up, and somewhere around the time when this kid is able to talk and communicate with his mother, they're on a drive somewhere, and the kid looks over out the side of the car window and says, "Oh, look, that's where I was born. That's where we were." And that's not where the kid was born.
Yeah.
And he's like, It's like, no, honey, that's not where you were. Like, yes, you were. I remember. I remember. I was born there, and then I passed away, and you were so sad, and I didn't want you to be sad, so I came back. And this kid was basically at like 2 years old, claiming to have been her formerly deceased previous child, and had new details about like the other kid's death that a 2-year-old would not know. Knew where the kid was born, knew where the kid passed away, knew all these things. And this is like the same family, the same one child to the next, making these claims. And like the mom loses her mind a little bit, I'm sure. But
I bet
it's like again, but just these stories.
Well, I mean,
yeah,
she might lose her mind for a little while, but if she accepts the story, I mean, that's what more wonderful expression of love could there be?
Yeah.
Than to come back. And look, there are not just a few of these kind of stories. There are thousands of these kind of stories.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, stories where children have claimed to be a particular person, and then the family is able to take them back to that part of the country, that family, and the people there over time accept them as being that particular person. Now, could that happen simply through such an incredible desire to be reunited with someone who's passed away? Of course. But I don't think it's all that.
It only takes once. You only need one of these stories to be true.
Only one black swan is
amazing
needed
to be true.
Right. Okay. Well, why don't I personally would like a few moments to go commune.
Yeah, we'll take a break.
Hello, this is Avalon Lee and Dankworth Smythe. In case you didn't already know, nerdology is the academic study of nerds. It's a somewhat new, but increasingly prestigious science, with me at the head of its list of intellectual lions. While the still fully human lads attend to their biological needs, I would like to share some of my advanced nerdological field studies by playing you a short audio clip I recently captured. Here we observe Vic Hermanson in the wild. Note the cheery disposition, the angelic voice of a Catholic choir boy, and the simple delight Vic Hermanson takes in the smallest of things, like a software program. How fascinating. Alright now. The crew has to be quiet. We don't want to miss this. We may never get another chance.
Ba-ba-ba-bum-bum, ba-bum. Ba-bum-bum-bum-bum-bum. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-bum. Man, I like this program. All right. Let's see if we can find something really strange. I would really like to have a bizarre topic tonight. So,
yes.
hitting the...
Yeah, and Randy and I were talking, and something lighter.
All right, let's
something not as heavy as, drugs and death.
Let's just see what comes up here. Oh, come on, machine. Hang on. All right, now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Let's just do it again. Because believe me, there's nothing light in this one. All right, let's see. All right. Number 1, exploding head syndrome. Okay. Number 2, religious tyrants. Number 3, ghost in the machine. The concept of the ghost in the machine. Number 4, ability, lucid dreaming or dream manipulation. Number 5, 13 ghosts, old and new ghost movies. And number 6, scotism, which I don't have any idea except for what I've written here. Anti-Aquinas, philosophy and theology forever in opposition.
Yeah, that'll be a light one.
Yeah,
How about exploding heads for one, Vic?
It's exploding head syndrome. It's a medical condition.
Or
Yeah, that sounds good.
well, I mean, my understanding of exploding head syndrome is that it's something that happens to people as they are going to sleep. Okay, you're going to sleep, and suddenly you perceive this incredible bang, and sometimes pain in your head, which wakes you up, and so you don't go to sleep, and they call that exploding head syndrome. Now, I'm going to look up exploding head syndrome because it could get messy.
And while you look that up, I will say 13 Ghosts is one of the movies that freaked me out as a kid.
Me too.
Yeah, it got me a little bit.
Now,
I don't remember it.
Now, look, you're a lot younger than I am, so are you talking about the old black and white 13 Ghosts, or are you talking about the color 13 Ghosts?
So I'm unaware of the old black and white 13 Ghosts, so I'm just going to go with the probably 90s era one.
The one where they inherited this incredible house with all these mechanical things and sigils everywhere that keep the ghost in check.
Yep, that's the one I saw. Freaked me out a bit.
So, exploding head syndrome is a harmless parasomnia where you experience a sudden loud noise like an explosion or gunshot or flash of light as you fall asleep or wake up, causing fright but no physical pain. I've heard that it causes pain sometimes, with causes linked to sleep transitions, stress, and fatigue. Managed primarily through reassurance. It's going to be just fine, Dave. And trigger reduction through though medications can sometimes help. Well,
is this in any way linked to when you're about to drift off to sleep and suddenly you feel like you just fell, you're like, and startle yourself awake? Because
I've done that since I was a child. I don't do it anywhere near as much as I used to.
I did that a lot in like my teens to mid-20s. And then it kind of stopped.
I never did it a lot, but I did have it happen when I was a teenager. I do remember that.
Usually when that happens to me, I'm aware of some kind of early dream where I really am falling. You know, I mean, I'm tripping over something, or I'm falling off a ledge, or falling off a building or something, and then as I become aware of that fall, I, jump up real fast. Wake up from that.
I used to get it in my bunk in the Navy. Like, I'd be on the ship being rocked to sleep, and the moment I'm about to fall asleep, it's just like, bah.
Yeah, you've only got like 2 feet in that bunk, right?
Yeah, I would never like jerk up and slam my head in the ceiling or anything. I would just like startle. I would just startle, and it would anger me because it would happen over and over again, and I was not getting enough sleep as it was on deployments.
How well did you sleep in that little bunk?
It wasn't the bunk. I was okay with that. It was the time. I was doing 6 on, 6 off.
Oh, okay.
Shifts, and so one of those 6 hours off, I was doing all sorts of other stuff like maintenance and work and all this stuff, and the other one I had to fit in eating and getting my couple hours of sleep. So you do that for months at a time. It messes with you a bit.
Yeah.
Is there logic to that schedule?
Yeah, I'm thinking, what is the logic in that?
I do not know. I cannot say why.
That seems like a perpetual halfway awake crew that you would have.
Seems like perpetual sleep.
I mean, it wasn't for everyone. It would vary like job by job, division by division. My particular job and thing that I was doing, that's how, when I was not the one making the schedule, that's how the schedule worked, unfortunately. Yeah.
Crazy.
It was, I would be zombie.
Can I ask what you were doing at that time?
Floating artillery and operating expensive camera systems to look at everything around us while we were bobbing along.
Okay.
Yes.
Excellent. So I've never heard of the exploding head syndrome, and I was hoping it was something more interesting than just a big flash and noise in your mind.
It's not spontaneous human combustion.
That's where I was headed. I was like,
Well, okay. So all right. So let's make this trivial or fun. who remembers the movie Scanners?
Vaguely.
It rings a bell, but I do not remember fully what it is.
Okay.
Yeah, that was back in the 80s, right?
Yeah. Well, Scanners was a movie about these. You can see this is working pretty well. So you can see Michael Ironsides there getting ready to blow up. So there was the ability of some people to stare other people down and make their head explode.
Yep,
That
it was a psychic thing.
All you need is country music and the right alien, and their heads will go.
Scanners are men and women born with incredible telepathic and telekinetic powers. There are many who exercise the benefits of their special gift in a safe and judicious manner. However, there's a group of renegade scanners who plan to create a race that will rule the world.
Excellent.
Did you guys ever see Mars Attacks?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, so because that's what
then
brings
you're
that to
hitting-
me is like you just play
Right.
the country music and just literally their brains explode
what is it,
inside
Slim
their little
Whitman,
domes.
when I'm calling you. And as that music played, these Martians' heads would explode
Yeah.
in their little, I don't know,
It's a wonderful, terrible movie.
in their little
I
bubbles.
loved it.
So what do you think is actually happening here?
What, with exploding
with
head
this
syndrome?
exploding head syndrome? Do you think this is a simple, mundane scientific explanation? There's some hormonal, chemical imbalance happening that's released when you go to sleep that is flooding the mind, or you think there's something more that science just can't explain? Because it sounds to me like there wasn't a cure other than, here, take some more melatonin and put on some easy listening.
I mean, I would see it as a both and thing where there's probably some things where it's just some sort of medical condition, and there's probably other people experiencing something a little bit bigger than that, but they've got an easy box to stick it in, so that's what they do, and that person never the same thing with sleep paralysis. I understand the mechanism behind sleep paralysis. Like, yes, your body is still paralyzing itself while you're asleep, but your eyes are open, you have awareness. But that doesn't mean something can't take advantage of that. And something can't go by and notice that you're in that state and say, oh, someone's stuck, let's go mess with them. Like,
Or cause it.
yeah, or cause it. Like, I think that you could easily have both.
Well, my whole life, which happens, actually, it happens less than it used to. But when I'm in the phase of going to sleep, I hear voices in my head. I hear all kinds of conversations that I'm not starting. And I've come to where I really like hearing these conversations in my head. As I'm going to sleep, I think I would feel kind of lonesome. Remember the song, "Why Are There So Many Songs About Rainbows?" Mm-hmm. And then he says, "Have you been half asleep and have you heard voices?"
Yeah.
And so that's what I assume that's what that's talking about.
I don't, I sang that song in choir in middle school. I remember that phrase. I never would have, that makes sense that it could be talking about that. I have to look up that origin.
Do you ever understand what the voices are saying, Vic?
Oh, all the time. Yeah, all the time.
There you go. People who love chisme, people who love the gossip, like you just get your nightly little dose of gossip right before you drift off to sleep.
Actually, I know that sometimes it is. I'm once again hearing media. I'm hearing something I heard on television. I'm hearing the news. I'm hearing something that I've heard somewhere in a movie, or conversations that other people have had, or conversations that I've had. But it can be very powerful. So,
are you ever one of the voices?
I don't think so.
I seem to recall when you talked about this before that these are not conversations that you are a part of. They're not directed at you.
No.
It's like you're listening to something that's happening in the other room.
Correct.
So in some of these cases, because you didn't mention this before, in some of these cases, you know for fact that it's a playback.
Oh, yeah.
Because you remember it.
Well, okay, so it's very hard to ever say no for a fact for something that I can't document. Mm-hmm. Okay, so to know for a fact, I would have to be able to write down accurately what some of these voices were saying and then go back and relate it to something that I've already heard. I can't do that.
Okay, fair enough. I'm sorry. I won't be as explicit. You're pretty sure these are conversations that you have actually
heard,
been a party to,
right,
or aware of in waking life being replayed.
Right. It's like it's like those have been recorded in my brain, mm-hmm. and they're going to play back until I go to sleep.
Maybe it's just a feature of the way your memory works. Like
maybe
you have
so.
That.
Maybe so.
The way you can recall things out of time,
But people, when I tell people about this, they act like there's something wrong with me. I mean,
I probably, when you said I hear voices in my head, that's where people normally go. But so the second question I have is, do you remember in any of these cases where the conversation was not from that day? Like, I remember this, but it was last week or 3 months ago.
Sometimes I can't relate it to anything.
Right, but are there any cases where you can definitely relate it to something that happened not in the day you're in, but in a previous historic day? Or is it almost always as far as you think? I
don't believe it's always stuff that happened today. I believe it could be more or less from any time in my life where I've got a memory. Okay. I mean that's part of what I've thought is that maybe it's just my brain. It's like brain urination. Okay. The brain has these various waste products it needs to get rid of.
I am not going to name this episode Brain Urination. I'm sorry. It's really tempting, but I'm not.
Well, but anyway, I've thought maybe it's just that my brain has all this stuff that it has collected. It knows is totally useless. And so that's one way of getting rid of it.
Yeah, but is it?
It seems to me like you'd be making new memories of the old memories.
So, the reason I ask about the historic aspect of it is that it kind of makes sense if it's like a brain dump, right? It's mm-hmm. a short-term to long-term memory deal, and this stuff is going into the trash bin and bypassing long-term storage, Mm-hmm. But if it is stuff that's like from a year before or 10 years before or last week, that doesn't make as much sense unless it is potentially a conversation that was pulled up based on something that happened to you that day. Something that maybe it's relevant, even though your conscious mind doesn't think it's relevant. Your subconscious mind is.
Well, probably my subconscious is better at knowing what's relevant than my conscious mind is. Because my conscious mind goes down all kinds of weird paths and rabbit holes.
And just to clarify, you believe, even though you don't know for a fact, that probably all of these are memories from some point in time, whether it's more recent or further back. It's not. I
believe finally I have decided that what I'm hearing are memories, playbacks. Now, I can't say to you Well, that comes from Lost in Space, episode 31, which I saw when I was 11. I can't say that to you. But here's one thing that I do find interesting. I have a grandson who is autistic. He's a pretty high-functioning autistic, brilliant little boy. And his primary way of dealing with the world is what they call scripting. Okay, so he has this essentially perfect memory for every movie, TV show, song that he hears. And if it's necessary for him to talk to someone, he will often talk with snippets from these movies.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if you think about it, is for a kid with an autistic brain, that he may have trouble coming up with his own stream of words. It makes good sense. And
yeah, it's an adaptation to use something that represents what you want to say without the ability socially, to create it yourself.
Right. And so it gets him through these conversations. And I've also found another thing. There's a short story called A Child's Christmas in Wales. And I'm going to read the first paragraph to you. As you can see on the screen, one Christmas was so much like another in those years, around the sea town corner now, and out of all sound except the distant speaking of the voices I sometimes hear a moment before sleep. That I can never remember whether it snowed for 6 days and 6 nights when I was 12, or whether it snowed for 12 days and 12 nights when I was 6. Okay, a delightful story. But I remember the first time hearing this or reading it and seeing that the distant voices that I sometimes hear a moment before sleep, thinking, oh, Dylan Thomas must have had that happen to him also.
That's fascinating. I think that there's so many things that happen in our subconscious that we just don't understand. I think this is one of the, as you know, my focus for a year now has been on learning more about AI.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I think as they research and as they develop these large language models and other components, these processes and ways that our mind works and collects information and stores and integrates that information has a lot to do with what makes us sentient, conscious beings. That is why, a program just can't recreate that. And unless they start putting components like this together beyond just a large language model, which is just a boiling down of probability of characters, words, and order. But some type, a true, what they would call it, an AGI, or now they're using the word superintelligence, whatever it is, something like that would be Terminator level thinking machine has got to have these parts of the subconscious that manage our thought.
That's a fascinating and frightening idea.
Well,
I mean, it's like,
I'm sorry it's frightening because they are just going
gangbusters,
trying to get there as quick as they can. And it's not necessary. That's the thing that frustrates me about the whole thing is we don't need the machine or the code that thinks it's a person. We don't need that. What we need is what we have now that is 100% accurate, right? And instead
doesn't hallucinate.
Doesn't have the biases that society has in its content that it's trained on.
I'm not sure how that can ever be eliminated.
It can't be eliminated, but it can be, they can weight it to where it's less of a problem. And that's what they've done, right? Because it was, you don't have the problems in the latest versions that you had 2 years ago. when the founding fathers were all black, right? When you had, right, you had these social pressures in the information it was consuming, causing it to make really weird hallucinations and choices. But in order to really get to something that is a true, independently thinking, conscious piece of code, it's got to have ways to integrate, learn, and process information on an ongoing basis. And I think this is an example of that. This is where something is happening in your brain, in your mind, or in your soul, I don't know, that is processing events in your life to get something out of it. And I don't think it's actually, I don't think it's on its way to the trash can. I think that has to happen for a reason. It seems wasteful for the brain to spend energy bringing up something that you're never going to use or don't need to know at all as just a way to throw it out, right? It'd be like, hey, take this book and read it so you can throw it away and never remember it again.
Yeah, but that is the way that many people read books. I mean, I know people who
that may be the way they read it, but they are still incorporating something from that book in their personality.
But if you ask them a week after they've read the book, hey, tell me about that book right there, they'll say, I don't remember anything about that book. Because they're not engaging in the book as a story. It's just time. I want to be moving my eyes across these words in order to be less bored during this period of time.
Yeah, but again, they are reading it, so they're processing it, so something's going in. I look at my sense of who I am as a person.
Mm-hmm.
I swear this is not ego, but I'm the hero of my story.
Well, of course.
Right? I am the Frodo. I am the, whatever main character that is in the stories, because I've read so many of those quests, youthful, growing into a man, making the tough choices, all of these things. And can I tell you which individual stories got me there? I mean, I can tell you the ones that are most meaningful, but I've read thousands of them. So, but in each of those plot lines, I take something away and incorporate it into my personality subconsciously.
Correct.
Even if it's not developing it, it may just be reinforcing something that's already there. So that's a subconscious process. Go ahead.
I was just going to say maybe Vic's subconscious is just less tethered to time than the average person.
That's
and
it's not
necessarily that you're throwing anything away. It's just your subconscious, for whatever reason, is less tethered to time. And so as you're falling asleep, it just runs through random things that your average person wouldn't.
Well, that's a very, very reasonable statement. And I'll tell you one way that expresses itself in my waking state is that I'm horrible with time. I can name an event. I can tell you where it happened, who was there, what was said, what the setting was, what it smelled like, what we ate, any problems we ran into. I can tell you everything about the event except when it happened. No idea when it happened. The events do not organize themselves chronologically in my mind. I've told you this. It's like everything is a perpetual now. Irritates the hell out of some people. but everything is a perpetual now. So as HAL, the 2001 computer, what does HAL mean? Heuristic algorithm learning or something?
It was just the easiest way to get IBM in there without saying IBM. Right? HI.
I know. ABLM. Well, Okay, that's probably one good reason to think about that. But I think Arthur Clarke might have had a different view of that. But so, as his various components are being pulled out, and his brain is slowly, starting to fall apart.
Forget things, yeah.
And he's becoming less and less of himself, which is a great analogy. I mean, because this is what happens sometimes, unfortunately, to human brains. Parts of our selves go away. Things that we once were, we can't say that we are anymore. But he asks Dr. Chandra, I think his name is Dr. Chandra, or they may have changed the name for the movie, but will I dream? Remember him asking that?
Yeah.
And then Dr. Chandra, I think this is one of the best moments in any movie ever made. Because it was Richard Dreyfuss playing the doctor, wasn't it?
Well, in the movie, it was Dave Bowman.
Yeah, but
that was unplugging him, right? Because that was at the very end, right?
Maybe this was 2000. Okay, I'm wrong. See, I got it wrong. It's not 2001 where they're unplugging him. It's 2010, and they're not unplugging him. They've reestablished him, but they have asked him to volunteer to die as Jupiter turns into a star.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. You stay here.
I remember the quote. I remember the "Will I dream?" But you're right. That makes sense. It wasn't with the
right. So they've told him the truth, and Hal chooses to. Okay, well, yeah, I'll stay here and die. But the question I have is, will I dream? And then he says, "Of course, Hal. All intelligent beings dream."
Yeah, I think he lied.
You think he lied?
Yeah, I think he lied. I think you unplugged the machine. I don't think there's any dreams. Well, okay, there's a good rabbit hole for you.
Mm-hmm. How so?
So if there is a soul for humans, and if we think that, do we think that other creatures have spiritual representations of them? Right? So you hear people talking about, seeing their dogs in near-death experiences, right? This
Absolutely.
is one thing
Absolutely.
that my mom talked about a lot.
Well, you hear about people having after-death visitations from their dogs.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to be dogs more than anything else.
I had a grandmother or two sets of grandparents, where they would occasionally visit each other, and the one set of grandparents always had tons of cats, and the other one didn't. But whenever they were visiting, the cats would say hi to the other grandparents. And I remember as a kid, one of these cats passes away, and within a couple weeks, the other set of grandparents is all amazed because they're visiting, and they feel the cat rub against their leg, and they just reach out and say, "Oh, hi, so-and-so," and they go to pet the cat, except the cat's not there, but their pant legs moved. The pant legs moved. They felt everything.
So I hear about dogs more with the near-death experiences, but in investigating, I've heard more stories about cats.
Really?
Seeing the ghosts or spirits of cats. And my wife's seen one. And we had a place we investigated, Magnolia Grange, where one was seen there a couple of times by other people. And so I know so let's take this idea through. So if animals have some spirit that represents them, and then if we go back to the conversation with Ryan Kralik about the information-based framework of reality, that spirit is a representation of something that exists here physically. When you create an intelligent being in AI, is there some informational or spiritual creation beyond reality that it represents it now that goes on after the molecules have been dispersed.
Say that one more time. I didn't quite get exactly what you said there.
All right. So if you have this dualistic view, right, there's a physical and a spiritual.
A physical aspect of your being and
Yes.
a spiritual aspect of your being. Okay.
Right. So if you create an intelligent entity in code, if you take that like information first framework, is there now an informational spiritual representation of that being that exists after the machine is gone?
I could not
Or
possibly eliminate that idea. I mean, I can't tell you how many philosophers and scientists and computer people that I've listened to recently who are talking about the purpose of our existence is to allow God to experience his creation.
Mhm.
You know, and that's and within us is some spark of God, some segment of God, some fraction of God that will eventually rejoin the greater spirit. And that through that experiences will be transferred. I see nothing that would prevent that God from at some point in time saying, I wonder what it's like to be an AI. I would like to experience what it's like to perceive the world through circuitry and memory and processing.
I mean, if you take an animist viewpoint where everything has spirit, whether it's animals, people, rocks, lakes, whatever, then from an animist viewpoint, I could see it also being a thing where if you create this large networked, intelligent entity, that they would end up with its own spirit as well.
All right. Explain that view or philosophy, theology a little bit better for me, and use the rock as an example.
You're talking to me or talking to
I'm talking to Randy.
Talking to Randy, okay.
I mean, I do not know everything about it, but my understanding is just, I mean, it's kind of that idea of what one of you was just saying, where like there might be a little fraction or sliver of deity in everyone in all the different forms of life or whatever. Now, if you expand that view towards inanimate objects, and maybe there's a spark of creation, a spark of deity in everything. And
it's a very
some people will take that view and they will almost assign levels of consciousness to it, where like maybe, or a share of consciousness to it, where maybe some little pebble is not going to have the same wherewithal, the same level of consciousness as El Capitan or a Great Lake or something like that. It's going to, like, there's just a much larger presence there. And so the spirit and consciousness that develops from that, or is part of that, the fraction of the creator imbued in that, might be larger and more self-conscious, more self-aware. And if you think of the internet and it's all these connected nodes all over the world and interacting with each other, networking with each other, then maybe it's a thing.
A couple of things there. I mean, several things. 3 things. This whole idea of everything having some aspect of consciousness. It's a very Native American First Nations idea. I've talked to First Nations people who talk about, everything that exists has some level of consciousness in it. Now, of course, a rock or a pebble or stone has a far smaller bit of consciousness than, say, a human or even a bear. But they do look at it that way.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what I was getting at with my question, I guess, is, so if I take the Sierra Nevada as an example, all right, that is one great big rock.
Boy, you're not kidding.
The entire thing is one slab of rock that is tilted, right? to where the point of it is sticking out, and that's what the whole mountain range is.
Mm-hmm.
So that as a spiritual being versus the boulder that got knocked off of it from ice freezing and splitting and, falls down and hits a car to the little gravel that came off of that boulder that's sitting on the side of the road. Is that all one spirit? From the Animist, this is what I was getting at from the Animist standpoint. Is that all one thing, or is it now three things? The mountain, the boulder, and the pebble. And I really don't mean this sarcastically.
No, of course not.
I think it's not a mocking question. Okay, no. I know it can sound like that, but is it all the same thing, or is it now three things? And is that, because when I think of it from a Native American standpoint, like the spirit of the mountain, right? So it sort of represents all of that. It's really the spirit of that area. But what is your understanding of that view of it, Randy?
I mean, again, I'm not in these cultures. I don't fully know, but I could imagine that there could be people who are in both camps who have animist viewpoints. There could be people saying like, "Oh, it's lost its life, it's lost its soul. That little piece that broke off, and what's the big mountain is what's left, and the little piece that broke off has lost that life, that spark of life." Or there could be, I could see both views existing, where some believe that way and some believe no, it still has a spark of something. It's not the whole that it was, so it's not going to have the same level of anything. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's other viewpoints where things may be assigned sound, I don't know if assigned is the right word, but things that conscious beings find significant can be imbued with consciousness, can be imbued with spirit.
Well, you were talking about this with the lakes, right, or the waters, right?
Yeah, so it could be a different thing where if it matters, if that rock matters to enough people, then it takes on a life of its own. It takes on a spiritual significance of its own. Like if something becomes a holy object, a significant object, suddenly it becomes more than it was. And so
which would go along with the idea that if that AI becomes something important, then it is somehow imbued with a spiritual aspect now beyond just the code.
And how many people who cannot afford mental health services, cannot afford a therapist, are talking right now to the AI and treating it like a therapist, telling it their deepest, darkest secrets. Yeah,
I think thousands is probably.
There are people developing significant relationships with this artificial construct, and can we know that they are not imbuing consciousness into it, whether it's something that would happen on its own or it needs an outside actor focusing on it, like say a human or something else. Whichever way it needs to happen, like I think it's possible.
Well,
so I guess my challenge.
I'm not going to say I know that it's
of course not
alive, but I think it's possible.
My challenge with that in thinking it is, it has no way to be different than what it is trained to do. So, the way these things work, they're trained, they get weightings on their characters, and it's just a pattern matching engine, right? Essentially, it's a very, very fancy pattern engine. And then the way it changes is by the way you ask the questions becomes part of the pattern matching and making it more personal to you. But if you wipe all that context, it goes back to exactly what it was before. So it has no way to grow or learn. So the only way, in my mind, it could have consciousness would be in some process you're talking about, where it is literally being given consciousness because of its importance to somebody. But I think until it becomes something that can what's the right word?
Self-generate?
Yeah, basically form its own ideas. Self-actuate, that's it. Mm-hmm. Until we get there, I don't think it can be anything truly conscious from the way we view it.
Let's do a poll of 3, since we've only got 3 here. given the two choices of consciousness is an emergent phenomenon or consciousness is an underlying phenomenon, which camp do you come down in?
Okay, be clear on how you're defining them. So emergent meaning?
Emergent meaning that there is no consciousness without a brain. All consciousness is the emergent activity of all the activity going on in the brain. At some point, that becomes so complex that we begin to perceive ourselves as an individual being with a unique consciousness.
Okay, but by brain, you don't necessarily mean neurons and synapses that humans have. Some thinking ability.
Well, the only ones, I mean, we only know about this one brain here right now. We have a pretty good belief that complex mammals and then probably maybe some other creatures have a sufficiently complex brain for that to occur.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it's very, very hard to look in the eyes of
a
bonobo.
A top of the pyramid, bottom of the pyramid question?
What is this now?
A top or bottom of the pyramid? Is that what you're asking?
For me, it comes down to this. Yeah. Is the brain the source of consciousness, or is it the receiver of consciousness? Okay. Where are you? Are you this gray matter? Are you this, pound and a half of goo in your head? I don't know exactly how much a normal brain weighs, but it's not very big. But is that what all you are? Or is that pound and a half of goo allowing something much deeper, something that exists universally, to be expressed through you?
I definitely view the brain as more of a transceiver. Like whatever consciousness is being beamed into us beamed is that I don't get caught up in the jargon, but that we're just receiving.
I like that word transceiver.
But we're receiving something. We're a much larger thing that we're just.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Let me state it a little differently. And I think the brain is probably the interface through which consciousness interacts with our life on this plane of reality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Does that sound right, Randy?
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly the way I look at it. Now, the thing is, I don't know. So, for instance, we were talking a moment ago about complex things developing consciousness. And Randy was talking about the trillions now of activities that are going on in the internet at any given time. I mean, that's a very, very complex system there. I mean, you and I, the three of us are talking on the internet. It's transmitting not just our voices, but our faces. It's transmitting all kinds of data about what we've been reading and looking at. And that's happening to almost every human on the earth. Okay, that's an incredibly complex system. So, in the book Ender's Game, there is Jane. Did either of you guys read Ender's Game?
I have, but I do not remember who Jane is at the moment.
Okay, Jane, in the Ender's Game, they have the Ansible. Okay, and the Ansible is this way of communicating over any distance instantaneously. Okay, so if I've got troops around a planet in another solar system, in another galaxy, with the Ansible, I can communicate with them instantaneously without any delay at all. There are, of course, billions and billions of Ansible connections going on all the time. And Jane emerges as a consciousness from all the activity within the Ansible.
I remember that.
Okay. So that's where Jane emerges. We have a similar situation with the internet. I mean, there's all of this activity, all of which is being driven by human consciousness. If consciousness can be emergent, why couldn't it emerge from that? I mean, I've always thought about, what's another system that has incredible complexity within it? And one of them is stars. I mean, a star is trillions of tons of hydrogen, helium, and other atoms as they fuse over time, and incredible energy. Why in a system like that couldn't you develop consciousness,
didn't Rupert
sentience?
Sheldrake posit just that the sun is conscious?
I don't know.
I believe that's one of Rupert Sheldrake's big papers about consciousness in the sun.
Well, I mean,
unless I have the wrong person, but I'm pretty sure that's who it is.
I mean, and there are other views of this. I know Schrodinger, I'm looking at it right now. Austrian physicist Erwin Schrodinger is known for the phrase, "The total number of minds in the universe is one. In fact, consciousness is a singularity phasing within all beings." That's, and Schrodinger is the kind of mind that if they say something sincerely, probably should listen to it and spend some time thinking about it.
So, I mean, that reminds me of one of my favorite meme images that I can never find when I want to look for it, but it basically shows like the surface of the earth with all these people standing on top of it, the people being the tip of my fingertips standing up over the surface of the earth. But you look below the surface, it's all one hand, it's all one consciousness. They just have they have the illusion of separateness while they're in this physical realm, but they're really all part of the same thing.
Which kind of gets you back to the Thomas Campbell view of things, right? We all come out of God's, or this universal consciousness that makes up everything. I guess I don't see complexity as what generates consciousness.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay, I don't think I think you probably have to have complexity in order to support consciousness, but complexity by itself does not make consciousness. So the sun, is it complex? Yes. Does it have the components needed to maintain a train of thought and be a coherent, remembering, sentient thing? I don't know.
Well, most mainstream scientists would contend that consciousness is something that arises from the complexity of the brain. And that once that brain is destroyed, consciousness is forever gone.
Yeah, but they can't. So they can posit but they can't show where that comes from.
No, of course not. No.
They don't feel the need to show where that comes from because if they can't prove otherwise, it doesn't exist. I mean, that's the whole materialist perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, I can tell you this. I have seen situations working at TIER, which means the Texas Institute for Research and Rehabilitation, or maybe it's the other way around. But dealing with a great number of severely brain-injured people where some portion of their brain is destroyed that should have taken away a particular ability or a particular set of memories or some aspect of their personality. And over time, sometimes a long time, some of that comes back. They become something closer to what they were prior to the brain injury. Now, of course, the materialist view would be, well, I mean, the brain wasn't as damaged as we thought it was. There was something left. It didn't seem that way to me. I mean, I can remember thinking this part of them is gone.
I was under the impression they've actually shown that some of these people are permanently damaged physically, and they're still having these access to these abilities or these memories or these aspects of themselves, and they've shown scientifically that they are missing these pieces.
Right. Well, I mean, they will show that, but still, what most scientists are going to posit is that we overestimated the amount of damage. But it didn't seem that way to me, and I was very carefully watching these people, talking to them, trying to the degree that many of them could, trying to find out, where are you? Where is this person? What's left? And I came to the conclusion way before I started reading about all this that you are not in here. You are somewhere else. And what's in here is a receiver, a transceiver. It's a way of the fundamental you controlling this body and communicating with the rest of the world. And I came to this view probably 1988 and have spent a lot of the time since then thinking about it.
Yeah. No, you and I are on the same page there. I've thought that for a long time, that this is more, we are more than what is represented here physically. And I think that, I think the view of science on this is, again, one of those limiting it to just what you see, and that's all there is, and all there can be, and that doesn't make any sense to me. I think there's much more to the picture.
I mean, I've gone so far as to just wonder, like when you have Alzheimer's or different diseases where your brain is damaged and their mental capacities are affected, like in this whole looking at it as a transceiver, like you get dusty circuitry, you get too much stuff, cross currents going on, you're gonna not get as clear of a signal. And so I've kind of looked at it for a few years now, not as long as you guys, but for a few years now, that maybe when people are having damage and stuff like that, it makes the transceiver a little bit faulty, and so they just can't, that consciousness, big C consciousness, wherever it is external to us, because I do believe it's external, just cannot get through quite the same way, because it's a fuzzy radio station at that point.
The tubes are dying. None of you, maybe Dave a little bit, but I can remember taking the back off of a television, pulling some of the tubes out, going down to the corner convenience store, like a 7-Eleven, and within that store they had a machine where you could plug your tubes in, and it would tell you whether it was a good tube or a bad tube. And if it was bad, there was a whole set of tubes down below where you could get a new one. Go stick it back in your TV. And
yeah. Sorry, Vic, I don't remember that.
And it would work again.
And I can tell you, if I took any tubes out of my parents' TV, they'd have killed me. I was really good at taking stuff apart. I was not so good at putting it back together.
Yes.
Well, does anybody have anything particularly weird or interesting they'd like to talk about? Anything you've come across?
Well, it depends on how long you guys want to keep going for.
I can go as long as you want.
I am perfectly content to talk.
I've got my, I already have my 23,000 steps a day. I don't need to do any more.
Yes. The obituary, the man who walked himself to death. Vicar Manson. Well, there was, it's still top of mind for me, that new topic on the list. That was really interesting.
And the new topic was, let me go down to the bottom and we'll see what this is. Khara Khora?
Khara Khora.
All right, tell the world what Khara Khora is.
All right, so I don't know a whole lot about it, but it made an impression. I was watching this, or listening to this Joe Rogan podcast with the guy who invented or was an engineer on the technology that looked at the pyramids and saw what was going on below the plateau. The little spiral column things that go 1.6 or whatever miles below that. And it wasn't actually interesting. He was talking about how they're using sound in that and measuring the degradation of the sound as it goes through the earth. But he was talking about this other site later on in the interview that they would like to run this process against, that's in Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And it is this cave. Cave is not the right word. It's this underground, where the stones are, it looks like, megalithic stones stacked and polished and cut into a series of what I think looks like almost vents.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're these, sort of rectangular cuts in the earth. They go way, way down, hundreds of feet, and almost like a really wide, narrow chimney. Not much wider than a person. And so this, what did you call it, Randy? Speleologist? Speleologist.
Yes.
I tried spelunkologist.
I like that even better,
right.
actually.
But anyway, he goes down in it and shoots video of it. This video was this little documentary video was done, and this was discovered in 2011. And once you get down there, it opens up into this great big rectangular chamber that's, really, really huge. And then coming off of it are offshoots from other, chimneys, chutes, tunnels, or whatever that go down or off to the side or something. They haven't explored all of it. But it definitely looks man-made. I saw there's a picture of one screenshot of a guy that was exploring it, inside of it, standing on a ledge that is clearly a rectangular tunnel opening.
Like this one right here.
Yeah, well, you see, so that's the chute going down, right?
This is going down.
That's going down.
Okay, so someone's leaning over this, taking a shot, looking down.
Leaning over, looking straight down. Right?
Okay.
And once you go down, then it opens up into this big, wide, massive chamber.
Okay.
But either from that chamber going into another chamber or something, that would look like it was a perfectly rectangular tunnel. Well, those just don't happen. The only way you get perfectly straight rocks like this are with, stones that have perfect fracture points.
Right. There are crystalline structures that can create straight lines.
Yes.
But generally not at this scale.
But not at that scale usually. And, the way these things are shaped, you have corners on stuff, right? And that are, it's not the way stone normally fractures. So at least from my old geology class years ago.
Well, just looking at this, it appears to be manufactured, ordered, constructed. It doesn't appear to be a natural situation.
I put some links in the chat that if they are real pictures from this place, obviously look like brickwork down there. Like, if they are the real pictures. One of them's just a map of what it supposedly looks like, and one of them's the page where that map came from.
Yeah, is the map the one that shows? Yeah, shows the chambers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got the great big. Does that actually have depths on it? So 9 meters.
I think it said roughly 350 feet or so.
Yeah, I think that's the 300 and some feet is the height of that massive main chamber. It's really incredible. This is not a small thing. And
look at there.
In it, that's what I was talking about. Yeah, so if you look at that top image, so, that's not, stone doesn't fracture like that.
No.
No.
Well, and plus, even here, you can see it looks like masonry.
Yeah.
That's
Yes,
not
it
the way.
does.
This is definitely something this is better than. I didn't even have a chance to look at this picture in detail when I saw it before we got on. Yeah, there's no question this is manufactured, and it's old, and it's deep, and apparently, in the video that I watched, it's about a 20-minute long video or something. Hitler was looking for this.
Correct.
trying to find it. And that's how this speleologist heard about it and has been looking for it himself and eventually found it. And so
Dave, do you have an understanding of what the distance is from this point at the top to the bottom of this huge chamber here?
Well, if the map is accurate here,
I'm thinking of maybe 50 meters, something like that.
Meters. Yeah, 9, 16, that's 25.
Yeah, look at this. This is, it'd be like 60 meters, something like that.
Yeah, I think you're looking at...
oh, no, this part right here.
I think the tunnel, I think that the chute going down would be somewhere around, let's just call it 35 meters down.
Okay.
And then the main chamber.
Ah, okay, I get it.
is probably another 36 meters tall. That's what I think that's how I read this diagram.
Yeah.
The top of the main chamber to the bottom is 36 meters. So you're talking, 115 feet or something.
Right.
I'm not great on that.
Yeah, this is like an old engineering drawing where you've got a front section and a side section.
Yep. Oh, that's what that is. That's the side view. Okay, I see.
Right. So this is looking across the narrow section of it, and this is looking across the wide section of it.
Yeah, and so then you go, well, and then it goes down again.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's below it? Because if I look at this, it's obviously something that's made, not something that's a natural occurrence. What purpose does a chamber like this serve?
Mm-hmm.
And the one guy said the whole time he was there was air constantly coming out of it or into it. I forget which, but there was constant air movement. It's cycling air. It's either always pulling it in or always pushing it out. I don't think he really said which direction.
Mm-hmm.
But as a ventilation system for something that's much deeper, that would make sense.
That would make sense, yeah.
Yeah.
So who's building a ventilation system, 100 feet under a mountain?
Well, I mean, look at those cities in Turkey, those ginormous complexes that go just stories and stories and stories underground that we don't even know how old they are.
So what did the Nazis think they would find?
Oh, I don't know. Hitler was looking for everything occult, hidden, and, anything. They talked about that a little bit in the video, but I don't remember anything specific that they were trying to find at this site. But it's an interesting one, and if you assume that this is real, which there's no reason to assume it's not, the guy talked about it like, hey, the stonework on this is almost exactly like the stonework on the pyramids in terms of cut and the way it's made. So what is going on with these really deep underground massive projects? There's nothing in our history that suggests this should exist. You certainly aren't going to see some culture from 5,000 years ago building this.
I mean, that's where you get into all the Graham Hancock stuff and everything there was all these vibrant civilizations that were destroyed 12,000 years ago when some meteor or whatever fragmented over the northern ice sheets and just flooded everything and wiped everything out. So
it actually impacted. Yeah. That, because you got all the, they talk about that. You got all the little, the diamond dust or whatever from the time when that hit. Uh, yeah, the question is what was there before that? You look at these things and they're made of stone. We've gone such a different route with building things. We use stone as a veneer. We
Generally, yeah. Mhm.
we don't make things out of stone to last. We build things out of, steel and wood, and we slap stone on the outside of it to make it look pretty. Um, what kind of culture does massive projects like this but leaves nothing else behind?
I mean, I would love to just understand, like some of these ancient megaliths, they look like the stone was literally melted into formations. And
Well,
they can't,
I mean,
there's no good explanation for how some of these things were formed other than if they were somehow cast or melted or made soft and formed into certain structures and then hardened again.
well, anything formed into these straight lines, it seems like you would have tool marks available.
Yeah. Yeah, he was talking about the precision with which the cuts are made on some of these stones are so smooth and so precise that we can't do it today.
Yeah.
I never buy that sort of thing. I mean,
okay.
they love to say this sort of stuff, but I'm pretty sure we could. It'd be probably expensive and time consuming, and it might take some research, but I'm pretty sure we could do it.
Yeah. But on a large scale, I think that's probably the the caveat to it. It's expensive to cut stone. Perfect. But I mean, we do cut stone like, granite for countertops. It's extremely smooth and
Yeah, but we
polished,
have big bandsaws doing that. This sort of thing. There aren't any bandsaws big enough to do this.
yeah. So I don't know. I just this.
I mean, that's the question to me is if somebody either dug or placed or cut this, where's the machinery that did that?
Yeah, this is where the analysis of this site and that I'd love to see more on, but this idea of they have analysis they've done on all the stone around the pyramids and things like that. Is the stone in here just repurposed and cut stone from that slab of rock on that mountain, or did it come from somewhere else? Yeah, that would be good to know. And where I really want to know where the lower tunnel goes. That's where the money is, right? To get down there. I can't wait to see what they do with the stuff under Egypt.
I mean, that's assuming they let us do stuff under it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
So he
the whole
talks
thing
about
where
wanting to do a project there. He said all of this stuff that the technology showed with those scans is accessible by some tunnels that already exist under the Sphinx, but they are filled with debris. And so you can't get through them without pulling the debris. But you can get through it without digging, right? You don't have to dig new tunnels to get into it. You just have to, clear out existing stuff and get access.
Trying to find that picture.
The other thing he said that I thought was interesting was the walls on the inside of the pyramid. They said are coated with salt, and it was his thought that the big flood actually the pyramids were covered in seawater.
Oh.
And that's why the salt's there.
Which would indicate that they're much, much, much older than they're generally thought of as being.
Well, and that's been the theory all along with these in the Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson discussions with Rogan was the timeline that official Egyptology uses is wrong, that the pyramids weren't built by the whichever pharaoh they say it was, but they were actually being refurbished. They were regenerating them, essentially, cleaning them up.
Yeah.
And that they were built around, or now maybe even before, this would mean before the floods that happened from the Younger Dryas event.
I mean, that's my thing with the Graham Hancock stuff is I will not necessarily say I subscribe to his view of the why things are like, oh, there's this little bits of this one culture survived and they spread all over the world and they gave everyone the same technology and that's why everything looks the same. The why, I don't know that.
I don't buy that.
Yeah, I don't buy that. But there's definitely something to all this stuff appears to be way older than your mainstream archaeology wants to say
Correct.
it is.
Well, I think
and
it's way
a lot of that is just the people who built their careers with saying this is how things are. They don't want to say that they were wrong. You've got a very just structured
It's not
thing.
really a scientific way of looking at things. I mean, to me, they're much older than they're generally thought of as being. But the reason they all look the same is because that's how you have to build stuff with rocks. And there's no real novel way of piling a bunch of rocks on top of each other.
Yeah.
So you don't find
I don't find the idea
the similarity in these different cultures of having knowledge passed on by a traveler.
I don't say that's not possible. I'm like Laplace. There's just no need for that hypothesis.
Okay.
Here,
Yeah.
If you're going to get a bunch of people and a bunch of rocks together, they're going to build things that simply because of the nature of the material will end up looking pretty similar from culture to culture.
Well, there are some that I've seen that are unique, and I'm not going to remember which ones. Some of them are in Peru, and I forget which one they compared it to. I don't even remember where I saw this, but there was some locking stones in place.
I've seen those.
That hold these structures together that were very unique in their structure. And I don't think that is, there are lots of different ways to do that. And the similarity seems more than just coincidental to me.
Let's see.
But it's not like that. That's not like all pyramids or stone structures have those particular designs. But those two in two different parts of the world seemed very, very similar.
Is this what you're talking about here?
Yeah, it's something like that.
Hang on a second. I don't. See, if we're going to do this, we've got to figure out how to get to the image we really want, instead of having to go through a bunch of images we don't care about.
Okay, so look at that one. Go up.
This
Okay,
one
right there. Click on that.
There we go.
All right, so it was something similar to that little L-shaped one on the left. Well, that's not a little, but
no, it's not a little at all.
It was an odd, and that may not be it, but there was something about this particular layout that was very, very similar in this other site that was on the other side of the world. And it's like, yeah, it seemed too similar to be a coincidence.
Well, I'll tell you what I see when I look at that as an architect. I mean, I look at that as, I've got all these stones. How do I fit them together to where they're not going to move around? Okay, so let's start with one stone, this big, huge sucker that this guy's standing in front of. Well, why don't we go ahead and straighten out this wall, and then we'll find, or this part of the stone, then we'll find a stone we can put right up against that. Oh, we have this little angle right here. Let's find a stone where we can cut that. It just seems to me like these would have been shaped individually to fill in all these spaces. Now, and one of the things, just even go to Mexico today. Go to Mexico, Guatemala, go out into the country, and they're still building some astounding things out of stone and masonry. Because one thing they've got is time. Lots and lots and lots of time. They don't have the necessity often of building things real quickly like we do in more industrialized cultures. So no big deal if it's going to take 50 years to build this. And to me, that's what I see. It doesn't feel that mysterious to me.
Yeah, like I said, I had to find the example of what I was looking at, but there was something, and what I remember in my head was something that looked sort of like an I-beam, but like the end of an eye. You get the but it was something like that. But I'm not certain.
If you look into it, I think there's a lot of evidence for things being a little bit odder than they appear on the surface, which is again why I definitely think there's something there when he says that there's more to the story than what archaeologists believe. I just don't necessarily subscribe to his interpretation.
Right. No, that's fair. Absolutely.
Yeah. But I think
that
fully
there's
on
more
board
to
that when
it
you look
than,
at it. Yeah.
I think there's more to it than it's all just, this is how stone gets laid.
See, that's some beautiful, beautiful, beautiful work there. Someone has made this stuff angular. They've made this almost feminine in its form.
Mm-hmm.
And look at this. This is the same kind of thing reversed. And I can understand why someone would look at that and say, that was cast. That wasn't carved. I can look at that and see that conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's interesting when they can't find tool marks, they can't find chisel marks, they can't find evidence of how they shaped these things in a lot of cases.
I'll let him get back there. Oh, yeah, it does.
I also find the idea that, you get enough people together, you can move as much stone as you want. Building something like the pyramids, I don't know. That's a lot of stone to move.
That's a lot of stone
just to
move.
make a statement.
I mean, then you've got the Coral Castle story where the guy has to move the Coral Castle at some point, and he makes everyone go away or go in a building or somehow because he's going to load it all himself because he doesn't want them to know his secret for how he moves things around. And this man single-handedly moves things that weigh just tons and tons and tons.
Like 12
very
tons.
quick. Yeah, very quickly.
Yeah. Very quickly.
Loads
His
it
name
up.
was Edward Leeds Scalnan.
Yeah.
And one of the stories is that he had hired a truck, a man with a big truck, to put a stone on, to move it to the new location. And so the man with the truck shows up, and the stone is, lying there on the ground. And Leeds Scalnan asks him to go away for, just a few minutes. Go back behind those trees, go on the other side of the house or whatever. Come back in 3 minutes. And when he does, the stone is on the truck. Now, I don't know if that's a lie. I don't know if it's entirely apocryphal.
Right.
Or if it actually happened.
Either somebody's making something up or something phenomenal was happening.
Have you been to Coral Castle?
No, I haven't. I have not been that far south in a long time.
I tried going one time, and as we were driving over toward Homestead, which hurricane was it? Some big hurricane came in.
Well, I can tell you the next time that we head down towards Miami, it is on the list. And I will definitely be checking it out.
And I believe when I first heard about Coral Castle, the hypothesis that they were saying is like he uses some sort of sound technology to levitate the stones, and it was all very interesting, kind of fun stuff.
But that's once again one of those statements where, based on what evidence?
Right. So here's where that ties in. In this interview, That's what he's saying. What he made the comment about, or the proposal, is that our society went with a scientific focus on light, right? So all of our technology is manipulating the electromagnetic spectrum in some way. It's his theory based on the structures they see beneath the pyramids and based on the structure of the pyramids themselves. He thinks this older culture that was more advanced was built on sound technology.
Okay.
That was the fundamental root of their technology was sound, which would make sense if you moved the stone with sound. Excellent.
Yeah, sound and resonance, and that's why crystals were important, supposedly, and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean,
makes sense.
I've got to get past. This is the skeptic in me. I've got to get past the idea that, man, it's hard to do anything with sound. I mean, if I wanted to get enough sound to raise the temperature of a cup of water 1 degree, it would take incredible amounts of sound to even do that one small thing. So that energy has got to come from somewhere. So listen, I don't know enough about what they're claiming to fight against it, but I do know that sound isn't a good way to transmit energy. It's not a good way to get work.
At least not by our technology.
By our technology. It's not a good way to get work done.
I mean, I think that's the point, though, is maybe there was a different branch of technology where they found ways to manipulate this.
Where they found a way to...
Yeah.
Well, is it too difficult to think that as we use light waves in different spectrums for X-rays, for gammas, for whatever,
lasers,
right?
We have very powerful lasers.
We, by focusing different wavelengths there, we get certain results. Why could not sound be manipulated at the level of the molecule to cause molecules to rearrange or break their bonds?
Well, it'd be. I don't have any reason why that couldn't happen.
I don't know enough about sound. So
I'm just thinking sound laser. Did you see the very first David Lynch Dune movie?
That's a horrible movie.
I liked it. Make myself watch it.
I liked it at the time, but the book was so much better. And
yeah, I mean, but it was a goofy movie, but it was David Lynch. Remember they had the little sound modules?
Yeah, it was the weirding device.
The weirding device, right.
The weirding module, I think.
The weirding module. And so, Paul Muad'Dib. Muad'Dib could hold it out and make some kind of sound. And
when he said his name, it focused the sound more powerful than anything else.
Right. So, Muad'Dib was a killing word.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Killed Sting with it.
All right, gentlemen, I'm getting kind of sleepy.
All right.
And I think we've got a good 2 hours and 15 minutes here.
It's been a good conversation.
All right. Anybody have anything they need to close with?
No, I am going to try my best to roll out the first rabbit holes this week.
Okay.
If not, it will definitely be next week. But we'll see. And
as I think I'm getting ready to be sucked in by snow and ice. If I have power, maybe I'll just try to edit this one on video.
Well, you did promise episode 54 was going to be video.
All right, I'll keep the promise. I'll keep the promise. Hey, Randy, thanks. It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you too.
Yeah. Haven't talked to you in a while, and sorry nobody else could show up, but I think the three of us did fine, and I guess I will end the meeting.
All right, and remember, 4 topics or 6 topics? Feedback at paranormalrundown.com.
Or 8 topics. Maybe you want 8 topics.
No. No, that's not on the table. Increasing the topics is not on the table.
All right. Talk to you guys later.
Y'all have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello, everybody. This is Vic Hermanson. Let's keep the outro simple tonight. This was supposed to be the first complete video episode of the Paranormal Rundown. However, somebody who will remain unnamed, me, decided to try to update Premiere, and in doing so broke some very important graphic processing links within his computer, and I just simply couldn't get the video out. So we fell back to audio. No problem. By the time the next episode comes out, I will have a fully different computer with a much more powerful graphics card to create a video version of the Paranormal Rundown. The Paranormal Rundown is a production of the Gang of Nerds Media. That's me. That's Dave Griffith. Right now it's Randy and its fathers Michael and Josh Birdsong. Any music you heard was from Lobo Loco, Smart Sound, or was simply in the public domain. Any media clips that you heard were used under the protection of the Fair Use Doctrine. Remember, Dave has an important question. Would you rather us pull 6 topics, 4 topics, or any other number you might think is reasonable? Write to us and let us know at feedback@paranormalrundown.com. Anything you have to say to us, good, bad, indifferent, scathing, praising, it doesn't matter. Write to us at feedback@paranormalrundown.com. Our next episode, we have Sylvia Schultz back. Now that's a treat. That'll be episode number 55. Thank you for listening to the Paranormal Rundown, and we will see you soon.